Well, thank you so much, everyone. Sorry for the technical difficulties there, but gotta love when technology doesn't work the way you want it to. But yeah, thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. In case we haven't met before, my name is Bethany. I'm currently the Director of Development at Advocate Life and Education Services. So we are, of course, a pro-life group. We just focus on providing practical support and help for women and families who are facing unplanned pregnancy. Um, and galas have been a really big part of this our success over the years. So I'm really just here to discuss the fundraising galas in general and just share some of the strategies that we've found have helped us over the years see better results overall. Most of you have likely been part of a fundraising gala before that maybe looked beautiful, but didn't quite deliver the results that you were hoping for, whether financially or through attendance. And let's be honest, we've all been there, probably many times. And so tonight we're not really talking about, the decor or fancier centerpieces or better entertainment. We're really just going to focus in on how to run a gala that focuses more on strengthening our mission, deepening donor conviction, and producing overall better financial results. More specifically, I'm actually just going to be sharing the fundraising model that Advocate has been using for our galas for well over a decade now. And it's significantly improved our fundraising galas and their results, and also helped hugely in monthly partner and new donor acquisition in a lot of ways as well. So, credit where credit is due. The things I'm going to be sharing is not mine. It's just someone else who was brilliant minds got together and created these strategies that have proven time and time again to be successful. And so that's what I'm going to be sharing tonight. So everything I'm sharing is actually coming from, it's called the Banquet Success model. It was actually developed by Sean Carney and David B. Wright, and it's been used by ministries of all sizes, but especially for smaller ones who are trying to grow to that next level. Um, Now, before I get into this, I should tell you that the very first year that Advocate implemented this model for our galas, we actually saw a 323% increase in revenue year over year. So, in other words, this model basically helped us generate approximately 4 times as much revenue as previous years before we started using this model. So I like to refer to it as our scientific formula for galas, and it works. Now, this model, I'm going to be honest with you, is a 9 to 10 module method that prints out about 10 inches thick worth of paper. So obviously, we're not going to cover everything that is part of this model. But what I've done is instead just kind of chosen to highlight the key, most critical elements that I would say have made the biggest difference for us. And I'm happy to share any further resources after if this is interest to you. I'm happy to share the resources that we have because we're all in the same business. I want everyone here to be successful, and this is one area that's helped us. So, moving forward, let's talk about where galas can go wrong. One of the biggest mistakes that I can see ministries make is treating the gala primarily as an event rather than a mission moment. The evening, I know, can often get very easily and quickly packed with speakers or videos or volunteer highlights, auctions, announcements, etc., all very well intentioned, but donors can often leave unclear about what they were invited there to do if there's too much packed into one night. And this can lead to missed opportunities for the organization in both finances and with donor engagement with the mission. If he tries to squeeze too much in, it just really causes distraction from your actual main purpose and can hurt your end result potentially. So the Banquet Success model is quite simple. It's very donor-centered and mission-driven and highly focused. It actually assumes that donors are generous when they understand the mission and trust the leadership. That's the premise of the whole Banquet Success model. And so it's not about pressure or emotional manipulation. It's just about clarity, respect, and invitation. There's lots that I could go into from this, like crafting your volunteer team or the marketing sequence to improve results. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't have enough time to go into all of that. So I'm just going to zero in on some of the key pillars from this model that have reaped the biggest rewards for us. So I would say that this model can really be summarized down into four key pillars: clear purpose, the right people in the room, a donor-centered program, and a clear ask. And we're going to dive into each of these a little bit more in depth. So the first is clear purpose. So every effective gala begins with clarity. Before you plan a menu, book a speaker, or sell a table, you have to be able to answer one simple question. What is this night actually for? Why are we even doing this in the first place? Galas in particular can be quite work intensive, so you want to make sure you're clear on your purpose from the get-go. And when your purpose is clear and when your team is clear on your purpose, everything else becomes far easier. The invitation, the program, and especially the ask. So there are a few key worksheets I would highly recommend going through either by yourself or with your team if you have one. And again, these are all generated from Banquet Success. I'm going to provide them. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, Marion, but I figured I'd just send them to you after and you could kind of distribute to people. Perfect. Great.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome.
Okay, great. So the first kind of key worksheet process that Banquet Success takes you through is working through a mission and vision worksheet. And this is great practice. If you don't currently have a mission or vision statement, I highly recommend doing this. But even if you do, I find it's still a good practice to go through these questions. Even if your answers end up duplicating your current mission and vision statements, it still just helps you refocus on your why and your reason for existing. And it's important because that why is obviously going to dictate every aspect of your gala. Um, and again, I've just included like a brief screenshot. It is more than just three questions, but just to give you an idea of what these kind of look like, I've included a small screenshot of each, and then I'll provide you the full documents later. The next worksheet I recommend going through, and again, these are like your early stages of planning, like the very first kind of stages that you would do or that we follow for this process. So the next one is a positioning worksheet. This is where you're diving deeper into the event itself. So this is where you're predetermining the overall tone, mood, and purpose of the event. And this is really just, it helps you, your staff, your volunteers, maybe your board members and attendees kind of get on the same page, if you will. So it takes you through questions like, what's the purpose of the gala? Why are you excited about this event? Why are you excited about this organization? How do you convey that passion and excitement to the guests that are coming that night? And what overall tone do you want for this? Do you want it to be more serious and emotional? Do you want it to be have some laughter in there and moments of levity? What are you hoping guests feel when they're taking part in this event? And again, this can be done on your own, but I do find it's best to be done with at least one or two other people if you can, if you do have that ability. And the next one is called the big announcement. Now, this big announcement is really just a phrase that the Banquet Success model coined. And it's really just, it's essentially the thing that you're using to create buzz and excitement for people who, as you're trying to kind of market this event. It's something to ideally try to get people to talk about it, something that creates like a positive momentum and anticipation of something new. And it's also helpful for just general marketing purposes because whatever your big announcement ends up being, you can kind of craft like a fun marketing teaser out of that, and then you can splash that all over all of your marketing efforts. Um, so a big announcement, it could be some big new development, like we just bought an ultrasound machine or we have a new facility, but it doesn't have to be that big either. I think as ministry leaders and fundraisers, we can sometimes forget that our supporters don't necessarily live, eat, sleep, and dream of our ministries like we do because we are in it every day. And so, one of the things that Banquet Success highlights is that the big announcement could be as simple as just finding an element of your ministry that already exists, but maybe you find a lot of people either don't know about, or if they forget about, or they don't know much about. and use that as your big announcement. Just as an example, we have had years where the big announcement was something like celebrating the 10-year anniversary of our pregnancy center, for example. But there was another year where we just highlighted one of our key programs, and that was the big announcement. It was experiencing a lot of growth, and we realized that a lot of our supporters could probably tell you we're pro-life, could probably tell you that we have pregnancy centers, but often miss the education program that we offer. And so we made that our big announcement one year. We talked about how it's been growing. We talked about kind of the topics that we cover through that, the impact that it's having on lives. And again, that wasn't something that was brand new. It was already happening, already active. But there was some really exciting things happening within that program, and that's what we use to build excitement for the gala. So it doesn't have to be some big new purchase or brand new change year after year. You just get creative with it. And that's what this worksheet really helps you narrow down. Um, and I should mention that this worksheet is actually one that we at Advocate will go through every single year, like clockwork. I'll bring together my team, we'll have a brainstorming session, we'll go through every question, and no idea is a bad idea. We just kind of throw everything up the whiteboard, and then from there, I'll figure out what the big announcement is from that brainstorming session. So it is very helpful. And then by the time you're done completing these worksheets, and you've determined your budgetary goals, and you and your team feel clear, you should be very clear on exactly what your goals are. And then that becomes the template that you funnel every decision thereafter for your galas. This is also how you keep your program focused and with little to no distraction. When your purpose is clear, it's easy to figure out what to say yes or no to when it comes time to like planning your program and that sort of thing. I should mention, if you do have questions, feel free to just interrupt me. I did leave time for after, but I can't see everyone's faces on my screen currently, so you just might have to stop me and yell at me if you have a question as we go through. Um, okay, moving on to the second pillar, having the right people in the room. I think as fundraisers, at least I'm guilty of this, I can sometimes tend to think of attendance like a marketing problem, but it's actually more of a relationship strategy. So the goal is not just to fill a room. The goal is to get people in the room whose hearts are already open to your mission or are nearly open or likely to become open to your mission. People that are likely to become long-term partners for you. That's who you want in the room. Um, and so with Banquet Success, they kind of do this through some key primary audience streams. And so with Banquet Success, we don't actually sell individual tickets. I know a lot of charities out there will, you'll see that tickets are $75 a piece, or sometimes as high as 150 or higher, depending on the size of charity out there. But with Banquet Success, it prioritizes tables and hosts over individual ticket sales. So the key audience streams are underwriters, table sponsors, table hosts, general seating, and volunteers. And again, there's a lot that I could go into with all of these, but I'm just going to kind of give you a quick snapshot of what these are referring to as part of the Banquet Success model. And again, one thing you're going to notice about Banquet Success is that it's very much a long-term and multi-step ask system. So to talk about, let's start with underwriters. So underwriters are really the first ask of the gala process. And you would begin underwriting outreach typically months before your gala and even before your invitations drop. This is basically the first ask of your gala season. And these are funds that you would be securing to cover the actual expenses of your gala. So your audiovisual equipment, the chicken that you're paying for people to eat, things like that. And then anything that you make over and above, once you've covered the expenses of your gala, anything extra that you make during that underwriting season just becomes additional income towards your mission, which is great. Underwriting is an important step because it really launches the giving environment for the gala. And it also helps to inspire other donors to want to give because all these other people, of very generous people, have already stepped up to say, hey, we want to be partners of this mission. So underwriting, I like to say, think of this as like your one-to-one coffee date with your major givers. Underwriting is not for everyone. It's for a very specific niche group of donors who you are in closest relationship with already. So this isn't something for obviously a brand new donor. These are the people that who have already proven their commitment to your mission, and they've already proven they want your organization to succeed. So these are the people that you would meet with one-to-one months before your gala and personally invite them to underwrite. And then their underwriting commitment will be multiplied the night of by inspiring other people to give, because if you do your job well, then the costs of the event are already covered, and therefore all of the donations that come in the night of can go directly to your program instead of the chicken in front of people. So to be clear, underwriting is not the main appeal of your gala. It is not for the majority of your donor base, and it's also not the end result. It's just step one. So think like board members who have high capacity, major gift donors, could be heavily involved volunteers with capacity to give larger gift, could be friends and family who are really committed to your mission and have capacity for higher level giving, could even be openly Christian businesses, that sort of thing. And then, regardless of whether you hit your underwriting goal or not, when invitations go out and the time comes for table sponsorship, you would immediately pivot your focus to that, whether you've reached your goal for underwriting or not. And so, with Banquet Success, a key part of this, of achieving those breakthrough gala results that we all want, is in the multiple streams of income, and underwriting is just step one. So it's okay. You can kind of let the pressure go that if you don't hit your underwriting goal, there's still other opportunities to get the financial results that you're wanting. So moving on to table sponsors, this is the second ask of your gala season. And again, this outreach for these begins when your invitations drop, when you start inviting people to sponsor a table. So this hits a broader group of people, because it's anyone can sponsor a table. Anyone who receives one of your mass invitations can sponsor a table if they so choose. And it's a way for donors and businesses to support you who perhaps may not be as familiar with your organization yet to be, say, underwriters, but still want to be supportive and learn more and take part. Um, and this could be anyone from dedicated volunteers to brand new supporters, could also be staff. I've had staff sponsor tables before because they want to be supportive. But yeah, it's just more of a broader audience for that part of things. And again, if you don't hit your underwriting goal, table sponsors is kind of your next kick at the can, if you will, to try to cover those event costs as much as possible. Your ultimately your end goal, your hope, your ideal situation is to go into your gala night having the actual expenses of your event already covered. So then moving on to table hosts. These are typically people that are chosen by either you and or your team to receive a free table and are personally invited to host that table. So I typically refer to these as people who have the heart, but not necessarily the funds. And also, this is never publicly promoted. This is really only at the discretion of your team. So typically at the start of our gala season, we would actually take time to create lists of, here's our underwriter list, here's our table sponsor list, here's our table host list, etc. So from the get-go, we know exactly who we're targeting for the different elements of the multi-step ask. For table hosts, you specifically want to target people who you know are responsible, who you know you can trust, who you know have a big heart for your mission, because you're putting your trust in them to fill those tables with the right people in particular. So for table hosts, outreach for this is typically doesn't begin until a few weeks after table sponsorship has already been out there. You want to encourage, obviously, as many people to sponsor a table as possible. So it's good to let that sit for a little bit before diving into table hosts. So you're typically looking at maybe about a month out before your RSVP deadline is when you look at going after table hosts.
Can I ask a
So
question?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm just wondering, we do some of this. We have Jared has graciously given us the book before, many years ago. But I'm just
Awesome.
wondering, in terms of the table hosts, so this is like so the table sponsors, some of them might not show up. They might sponsor a table and but they might not be able to come. So is that when the table host takes over? That's the table you give to the table host, or this is just some tables you reserve?
Um, yeah, it's so if people, we have had people who've offered to sponsor a table because they want to be supportive but can't make it. Sometimes those people will still fill their table even if they themselves won't be there. And then there's others who just, sponsor a table and say, hey, if you have someone, um, to your point, who maybe can't afford to purchase a table but can fill it, like have this be the thing that covers their table. We have had that before. We do tend to have a couple of those every year. And that's fine. It doesn't necessarily affect who we would offer a table host position for. We're still going to go ahead and offer the list of people that we have to host a table, whether we had that funding or not. Because again, you're being strategic about who you're choosing to offer those free tables to. So it wouldn't necessarily affect who we would ask, but it is handy because obviously in an ideal world, it'd be nice if every table was covered financially. So it's always helpful, but it's not necessarily necessary.
Sorry, one more question. Is there a percentage? Like, is that 5% or is there or just you just whatever your heart tells you to
Yeah.
reserve for host?
I've never done the lists, but based on percentage necessarily. There could be perhaps some argument for that. I've always just based it on, we've always targeted underwriters and table sponsors first. And then after that, your goal is the more people you have filling tables, the less work you have to do, right? Because, you get 20 table hosts to fill tables of 10, that's suddenly 200 people and 200 seats you didn't have to fight for. So it is helpful to kind of prioritize and be strategic about this. But I'm not too caught up in a percentage, like we want to have X percentage of table hosts versus sponsors. There comes a point in the gala season where, early on, you're like, as fundraisers, we have to go after the funds as best we can. But there does come a point where you also just want, you want to make sure the right people are there, that people are in the room, and you don't want to uh, let funding be an issue there. We've also had it before where, like I'll get to this in a minute, but where people who have reserved for general seating and I'll see that they reserved like an entire table's worth, or sometimes multiple tables worth, and then I'll just call them and say, do you want to just be a host? It's just the difference of that way, it's a reserved table with their name on it, so their people know exactly where to go rather than having to try to save two tables worth of seats. So I'm a little bit more flex with table hosts. We do have a list that we prioritize for that, but I also am pretty flexible when it comes to it. So yeah, think of for table hosts, this could be like maybe your lower level monthly donors, could be small supportive churches, vendors, could be current or former staff members, or current or former board members, that sort of thing. And then general seating is free seating that's just kind of open to the masses. It's a general invitation to attend at no cost. But we always still make sure to communicate right from the get-go, right from the invitations that go out, that there will be an opportunity to invest in the mission the night of. We don't ever want people to be caught off guard that there would be an ask. Um, and so general seating people will typically still give something, because they don't want to, they're going for free. They do feel like they typically will want to give something that night. Um, but it's also an opportunity to invite people who are brand new to your organization. Maybe they're not fully bought into your mission yet. So having that free seating option is really helpful because it's an easy way that they can still show up, learn more about your ministry, get educated on the pro-life cause, without having to, immediately submit to giving us money yet if they're not ready for that. So it's helpful in a lot of different ways. So it's not your major source of income, but it is still has a valuable place in the overall audience stream of this.
Sorry, Bethany, can I just interrupt just for a second?
Yeah.
Just in case anyone's not clear, could you just quickly define what is a table sponsor, what their responsibility is, as versus what is a table host and what is their responsibility is?
Yeah, so a table sponsor is someone who we typically have multiple levels that you can sign up for, but the basic gist is you would pay for your table. Maybe you choose the silver table sponsor option. It means you get a table of 10 or 8, however many your tables are seating. It would then be their responsibility to go out and think of people, whether it be friends, family, coworkers, whoever it may be, of people who might be a good fit for our mission and to invite those people to join them at the gala. So it would be on them to fill their tables. As a table sponsor, we do try to offer some perks because at the end of the day, they have, given a significant donation to cover the guests that they're bringing. So we do like a pre-dinner reception that's more closed. We would never tell someone they can't come if they showed up and weren't a table sponsor, but it's something that we open for table sponsors and underwriters and their guests to attend is just a way to say thank you. They often will have our keynote speaker there. So there's some perks there. There'll be like preferential seating in the main room. But as far as what the actual table sponsor themselves has to do, it's really just filling their table and trying to be intentional with it is that they invite. So when a table sponsor confirms, we will actually immediately send them a letter that encourages them to invite people, and that would be likely to become long-term partners in our mission. So right from the get-go, we're communicating that, hey, as you're inviting people, like be intentional about it, be strategic. This is an opportunity to invite more people into this important cause that you and I care so deeply about. A table host job is very similar. It's really just the difference that they may not have the financial capacity to give. Um, and so those people, and also they may not, table sponsors more often than not will fill their tables with people who also have a higher capacity to give. And a table host, I have seen table hosts do that as well. But sometimes, more often than not, they're also getting lower level givers as well. But it's still new people being brought into your mission. So ultimately the job of those two people is the same, but we try to honor people for like for those who give us sponsor a platinum table or something. We want to honor that as best we can and try to offer some moments of appreciation and whatever that looks like. Did that answer your question? Okay. And then, of course, and this goes without saying, volunteers is another one to fill seats with. These are obviously the people that are actually volunteering at your event. It could be, if you had a church youth group, for example, come and help you set up. I would offer them a table at your gala. Maybe you had like a service organization, say like Catholic Women's League, for example, who I don't know, they prepped your centerpieces for you or something, offer them a table. This is just another way to kind of fill those seats with people that are already kind of invested into your mission. So, in the end, because of these attendance streams, the majority of the people at the gala in the end are actually there for free because they were invited by a table sponsor or a host, or they reserved in free general seating. So in this model, table hosts and sponsors are far more important than what an individual ticket sale would be. And if you think of it this way, it's really just because an individual who believes deeply in your mission and invites others with intentionality that they have a relationship with, that's always going to outperform a generic invitation from us as the organization. And it's an easy way to bring others into your mission because relationship always trumps all. So this strategy doesn't just help fill a room. It does do that, but it does primarily focus on getting the right people in the room who are likely to commit to your mission.
I have a question, Bethany. What do you
Yeah,
do? Do you have a problem with no shows? So, I mean, you spend all this money on the meal and you get 10 people don't showing up and you're paying $50 a meal or something.
of course. Yeah. You know what? I've never in my life have I ever had a gala where 100% of people show up. And, it's usually around the 5 to 10% mark. And I also do find a good contributor of that like for Advocate in particular, we run our galas in the fall time where sickness likes to run rampant. So more often than not, it's people not showing up because of that. And people are usually pretty good and try to call as much as possible. But yes, of course, we do have no shows. Um, but and there's not really a way to counteract that, but there are systems in place within the banquet success model that we do try to do our best to prevent that. So for example, we will actually call a couple weeks out, well, usually 1 to 2 weeks out from the gala. We will call every underwriter, every table sponsor, and every table host, and just check in with them to ask them, hey, have you filled your table? What are things looking like? Do you think you will fill it by the time the gala rolls around? And it also acts as a reminder to just like, oh, right, I still have a couple seats to fill. Thanks for the reminder. And then they'll work that much harder because you've given them that reminder with the phone call. Um, we'll also have kind of automated email reminders set up. We will also even call general seating people to remind them, hey, just letting you know, gala's a week away, you signed up, just want to make sure you're still planning on coming. So there's things like that that we do try to do to prevent no shows as much as possible, but ultimately you're still going to have to deal with that. It's just human nature. Yeah.
Bethany, do you call every general seating person? Like I've gone to a lot of your banquets and I've gotten calls before, but is that your rule? You call, I mean, every general, yeah, general person in general seating, or just as you have time?
It's both.
Okay.
So yes, in a perfect world, there have been years where perhaps we're really short-staffed that year, or there have been things like that that have come up where um, you know, we might start to call the list, but maybe we don't get through to everyone, or we have to just prioritize certain things. Like, okay, we're going to prioritize table sponsors and underwriters, and if we can get to general seating, like great, but it's crunch time and we might have, it could be that we struggle to find volunteer help to help with all those calls because it is a lot of phone calls. Advocate also runs 3 galas back to back, so that also comes into play because it's a lot to manage one gala, let alone 3. So yes, there are times when we have not run this perfectly and have missed some calls, but in an ideal world, yes, we would call every single person. So basically, if you remember nothing else from this section, the who that is in the room is far more important than how many. Quality over quantity always. The third pillar is a donor-centered program. It's important, obviously, to put together a program that serves the donor themselves. And so a strong gala will often follow a clear and strategic program that often includes an emotional storytelling arc to it as well. To do this, supporters really need to feel a sense of belonging, understanding, connection, and invitation. So with belonging, it's pretty simple. People just need to feel welcomed. So this is where volunteers come in handy, you know, help them make the space feel as welcoming as possible. Show supporters appreciation before, during, and after the event. Make sure to be intentional with actually thanking them multiple times throughout. So right in your introductory MC notes, thank donors for coming. Thank them for already investing in your mission just by showing up that night. Thank them partway through and of course at the end. Um, if budget allows, or preferably if you could find a sponsor for this, consider providing favors for your guests, even if it's something as small as like a small piece of chocolate. There have actually been studies done to show that a small gesture, like a favor like that, especially at a fundraiser, actually plays a part in the psychology of giving. I know that sounds crazy, but it really can make a difference for people. And most importantly, respect your supporters' time. I think this is one we've all struggled with probably at different points and different events. Um, I know Advocate certainly has had years where we've gone far over time, and it's not not great when that happens. But this is a big part of the banquet success model, and it's really key to honestly to the success of the event itself. So if you say your event is from 7 to 9, then honor that. I actually recommend putting having someone in charge of timekeeping, where that is actually their main job for the night, is just to keep the event on time. So I think sometimes if you're the main event runner, um, as you all, I'm sure, would know, there's always a fire to put out or someone that, pulls you aside because you have to deal with something. So having someone else that's their primary focus, where they can go and poke the MC to, hey, you got to get up on stage now because we got to start, or poke, so and so to keep the evening moving, can be very helpful for that. Another key part of this is that you also obviously want people who are attending that night to understand your mission. So it needs to be presented in a clear and concise manner, through your organization update or report, or whatever there's different names for that. Take a moment to highlight the key stats to show evidence of the impact that your ministry is having. It could be a brief summary of your programs and services, could be showing charts or photos. This is really just an opportunity to show off how you're actually utilizing donor dollars, because when you get to the ask later on, like, that's what people are going to remember. This is where you're showing, like, hey, if you donate tonight, this is actually how we're using your money. This is the kinds of stuff it's going towards. And so this is your opportunity to show off, and to show your donors off, because without them, like, we don't exist. That's just a part of nonprofits. I also recommend repetition is key. If you do have a formal official mission and vision statement, I recommend repeating those at various points throughout the night, both in writing and verbally. And I would also say that this is also where, like, a guest speaker can come in handy to further bring home your point. There's tons of pro-life speakers out there, of varying speaker fee costs. So you don't have to have a keynote speaker, but I do find it's helpful to kind of, for that education piece, to educate people more on this issue. It's helpful to have an outsider come in and talk about that. But moral of the story, not one person should walk away from your event being confused about why you exist or what you do. And then a key part of this, which is the emotional arc, is a human impact story. And by this, I am referring to either a client testimony or a mission impact story, depending on what you do. This could be a client who actually receives support through the work that you're doing. Could also be a volunteer just sharing a really impactful, powerful moment that they had while serving through your ministry. Could even be a staff member just sharing something that, a moment that they had. Every ministry is different, and not everyone may be able to have a client testimony, but there's always some form of a mission impact story that you can find and share. If there's one thing I could encourage, I do highly encourage only focusing in on one story rather than like multiple. I know some organizations out there will have, multiple short stories or multiple client testimonies. I think there's maybe a time and space for that, but I find that if you can zero in on one and spend time into it, it allows people to actually emotionally connect with that single human impact story, and it carries way more weight than, say, multiple stories would. Marian? Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Bethany. I just was going to say, we had a really great volunteer story. We just had our gala in March, and it was very powerful volunteer story. We have a little bit harder time finding client stories because our staff is quite protective
Yeah.
of their clients. Can you talk about that for a second? Like, do you guys, like, quite often you guys have clients, stories like videos and stuff. Do you guys find it easy to find, or yeah?
Yeah, I know that, especially in this work, especially when you're dealing with pregnancy centers and very sensitive, to say the least, type of work, very confidential, sensitive matters that you're dealing with, and people's vulnerable stories. So, yeah, I would say it's something that has been an ongoing conversation with even our staff at Advocate. Um, our, um, I, I would say, I think there's probably arguments for both sides of it, and I see both sides. We've had these conversations many times, like I said, internally. My stance on that is you might be surprised on how many clients actually want to share their story, because these videos, yes, like, so for at Advocate, we choose to share testimonial through a video. There's multiple reasons that we do that, but one of the reasons is because it's something that not only is going to help us raise funds and further the mission the night of at a gala, But it's also something we use to show at like church presentations or even a one-on-one major donor meeting to show like, hey, here's like your money in action. Like this is a real person that you helped. But also it's these have also been used for in our centers with other clients. There have been testimonial videos that we've shot with clients that our staff have shown to other women as just an encouragement to say, hey, like your story actually has a lot of parallels to this person, or this person's been through what you have. So, it's used for very multi-purpose function. And I find that a lot of clients, when they hear that, are actually excited to share their story because um, often too, they're just so thankful for the support they receive, to be honest. Of course, that's not everyone, and I do think that there is wisdom and discernment to be had. I will often send an email out to our staff like months and months in advance and just say, hey, would love it if we could have a client testimony this year. Take time to think and pray about it. This is kind of how it would be used. And then I also allow flexibility within that. So, in an ideal world, we film it, we share it at the gala, it goes on our YouTube page, we share it on social media, and we have free access to share it wherever, whenever. We of course get media releases signed. We want to make sure paperwork is all there, but that's our ideal. But then we work backwards. So, for some clients, they're more than happy to share their story because they're thankful for the support, but they don't want their kid to be on screen. Totally fine. Others have said, happy to do this, want to support your gala because I'm thankful for the donors who gave to help people like me, but I don't want it online. Totally fine. So then we only share it at the gala, and that's that, and that's their choice. So we also always give clients the final say on their video. So I always tell them that if you say something in the interview portion and you regret it later, like just tell me and we will take it out of the video. We will not share anything public that you are not okay with. Even though we have that media release, we would never in a million years use that against a client. We would never hold it over their head. We always want the client to feel comfortable, and that trumps everything. So there is balance in that. We don't want to be monsters, but I do think there's huge value in sharing those stories. And I think um, while I'm empathetic to where staff might feel like, well, I don't want to ask them for this. You do have to be mindful about who you're asking. If you just had someone who just found out they were pregnant 5 months ago and are still in the thick of crisis or mental health issues or addiction, whatever it might be, that is part of that client's story, they're obviously not at the place to be publicly sharing their testimony. So, there's wisdom in that. Pick someone who, is maybe a year or two out from their story, and your staff will have the relationship with those clients to know the answer to that. Does that
Okay.
help?
Thank you. Yeah, wonderful.
Okay. Okay, so and then the last one I'll just say is obviously an invitation to give. Make it clear, make it direct, and just have a clear call to action for attendees to be able to give after you've put this effort into this program. In total, the entire program should run no longer than 60 to 90 minutes outside of the dinner portion. And again, honor their time. It really does go a long way. In the years where Advocate has kept to our time, we have heard from multiple donors how much they appreciated the fact that we honored their time. And actually, if we said we ended at 9, we actually ended at 9. And likewise, on the years where we didn't, I heard about it. So, and I get it. People, this goes back to making people feel respected and appreciated, and time is a big factor in that. And also, if you don't, it could affect your appeal, because that's typically the last thing that would happen at the end of the night. If people are already getting antsy to leave, it could affect what people actually decide to give, and nobody wants that. The fourth pillar, I find many Christian ministries in particular can struggle with this one, but it's making a clear ask. And it's not because donors object to giving. I think it's because leaders can feel uncomfortable with asking. But Banquet Success kind of talks about it this way, that the ask is more than simply taking money. It's actually just inviting people into participation into God's work. And we're giving people that opportunity to come alongside us as mission partners. again, as nonprofits, if our donors stop giving, like our mission doesn't continue. It takes a village to run any nonprofit. And so this really is about mission partnership. And this is also the ask is a chance to let your passion for this work shine. And when you let that lead, then the ask becomes far easier when you're just letting your passion and belief in this work carry it forward. Overall, a strong ask is direct, don't beat around the bush. Um, Speak with confidence. Again, let your passion for this mission shine. Um, Getting more into the details, again, going back to that, this is a multi-step ask process with Banquet Success. We obviously start months before the gala with that underwriting, as we talked about, but then the night of, we actually do a double ask. So we will do first an ask for one-time giving and then a second one for monthly giving. We do go so as far as to have one envelope and donation form for one-time giving and a second envelope and a second donation form for monthly giving. The person doing the appeal would quite literally walk people through the one-time giving process and then repeat that exact process, but for monthly giving. I know that this can sound like a lot, but you really will be surprised by the number of people who will give both a one-time and monthly gift. And by the way, likewise, you'll be surprised at the number of underwriters and table sponsors who, again, these are the people who have already given typically large checks at this point and will give again at the gala the night of. If you've done your job to inspire them to give, then you'll see a lot of repeat donors that way. So sometimes when you go to count your funds after, you'll see someone's name coming up 3 times because they gave at 3 different points throughout your gala giving season. So don't hold yourself back. All you can do is ask, and the rest is in God's hands, and you might be surprised on what comes from it. And then last, just to wrap this up quickly, lastly, donor appreciation, of course, is not just a post-gala thing. It is very much a key part of the overall success of your mission and your gala in and of itself. I typically recommend a sincere thank you within 24 to 48 hours. At Advocate, we will actually count gala funds the very next day after the gala and send out a thank you email with an early results total that day. I recognize that that is not always possible for every ministry, just depending on the size of your ministry or the size of your team. And that's okay. If you are not able to count the funds that quickly, I would still recommend sending out an email the next day, just thanking people for coming, thanking them for giving, honor that it was a great night, assuming it was. And then, let them know that you look forward to sharing the total with them as soon as you have it. So make this system work for you. I also would recommend not only that, but when you do have the funds counted and know who gave, sending out handwritten thank you cards goes a very long way to everyone who donated at the gala. We typically will do that within a week or 2 after the gala. We do have a volunteer team who helps us with this. I recommend getting a volunteer army to do the same for you. And especially with new donors, this goes a long way. And then, of course, any major gift donors should ideally be called and thanked personally if possible. But again, if you're short on staff or resources, still send them a handwritten card. Something is better than nothing. And then lastly, measuring success. Obviously, there's different ways to do this, but we do look at net revenue, new donor acquisition, new monthly partners, increased gifts, and follow-up meetings all come into play when it comes to trying to figure out if this was in fact successful. Overall, in closing, the main point that I hope is coming across is that galas don't actually need to be extravagant to be effective. I think it's nice to have extravagant decor. It's kind of a fun night out, but it doesn't have to have the biggest entertainer or the fanciest decor or the most complicated auction. I think if it's clear, purposeful, prayerful, you're going to see the results that you want to see. And again, when donors understand your mission and they trust your leadership, then generosity tends to follow. So depending on the size of your events or your team or your resources or your mission, maybe you can't implement everything about Banquet Success right away, but start small, choose 1 or 2 areas where you think could be realistic for you to start to implement and see what kind of change it helps, if it see what kind of difference it might make for your event. That's it.
Perfect. Okay, so I guess we can open up for a Q&A then. And I just have one quick question for you, Bethany. So I'm assuming then you're suggesting that we keep silent auctions, door prizes, side entertainment, keep all that to a minimum, bare minimum, correct?
I would highly recommend that.
And
Yeah.
then and then the next question I had was, we're going to have a event soon, and there's going to be like a couple MPs there, and we're hoping somebody from the city council is going to be there. So, do you recommend to do like an announcement of VIPs in attendance, or do you not recommend that?
To be honest, I don't. And actually neither does Banquet Success. Now, sometimes if you have those people, I know sometimes that can be like a specific request of them. So obviously you need to honor whatever you've maybe verbally agreed to, of course. But generally speaking, I wouldn't. Again, anything you add in is just taking time away from your main purpose. Um, Now, uh, if a key part of your ministry is political affiliation and that sort of thing, then maybe it is a core purpose for your event. In which case that might be beneficial. But generally speaking, if it doesn't directly correlate to your key purpose for that event, I wouldn't spend time on it.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? So you can go ahead and unmute yourselves and ask away. We'll stay on for a few more minutes.
Yes, I do, Bethany. Oh, am I unmuted?
Yes, you
Oh,
are.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. My question was, do you use a certain program for table seating, um, like organizing all that? Like when people register, they can book tables together and like I'm just kind of thinking behind the scenes how
yeah.
you organize that, what program you use.
Just so I'm clear on the question, you're referring to how we manage like a master RSVP list kind of thing?
Yes, and like say if people like 8 guests want to sit together at a table, like do you use software that you can organize that all on?
So we're pretty low key, to be honest. I know there is software out there like that. We just use a good old-fashioned Excel spreadsheet. We keep it really low key. There's so many different kinds of software out there for so many different kinds of things. And a lot of it's just another thing to add as an expense. And so it's never something that I felt is necessary. Maybe if it might become that if you get into having quite massive galas where you're talking possibly thousands of people, then that could be more beneficial, of course. We're not at that level, so we find that we can make do with an Excel spreadsheet just fine. Um, so typically, we organize it by underwriters and table sponsors, table hosts, and then general seating is separate so that we keep the separation that way. It's a very detailed spreadsheet, so we will mark what everyone's designation is. And then we have a very detailed notes section. So anyone who requests changes of any kind, we live and die off of that spreadsheet. And I tell my team that every year. So if whether it's someone calling with a peanut allergy or someone who these tables want to sit together, everything goes in that notes section. And when it comes time for that seating chart and those final details as the event date gets closer, we look at that in depthly and make sure that we've honored everything that we said we would.
So, in line with that, I'm just wondering, sometimes what we have is we have somebody sponsoring a table, they invite their guests, but we don't know who's coming or their emails. Do you have a way, like, do your table hosts and your sponsors always give you their emails and names?
Not often. Sometimes they do, and we will take them when they offer that up.
Okay.
Um, we typically don't, but more often than not, when what we find with our underwriters and table sponsors, the people they invite do end up donating, and so you'll often still end up getting that information at the donation level. So we've never asked for that ahead of time. General seating we will, just because it's a little bit harder to manage. And also we also, I'm not going to go into too much detail for time, but we do also count by table numbers. Every envelope has a table number on it. We know who sat at which table. So if we did have a question on, hey, who is this person, or had a follow-up question on a donor that was a friend of this table sponsor, we always have a way of contacting them that way too.
I
Okay.
have I just want to say that what I actually make I volunteer with Advocate, and I'm on the people that make the cards, and which I really enjoy because you guys make me feel included. And
Good.
yeah, that's really, really important and can feel good. Like, but also, yeah, we have to sign a confidentiality report, a confidentiality thing because when you're sending out small cards in a small town, you have to be careful. And so, but I find that a very good thing to do. Like I like I've always been proud of volunteering for Advocate because it's a really Christian thing to do. Uh, so so yeah, I like your approach. Yeah.
Thank you. And I should clarify that when we invite volunteers in to help us with those thank you cards, I just want to be clear that yes, we do get them to sign confidentiality agreements, but we do also we only share the details that are absolutely necessary. So they're only, if they have to write a thank you card and put it in the mail, they obviously need the donor's name and their mailing address. But we at no point have ever shared what the person donated. So they're not seeing what dollar amounts people are
That's
giving.
right. I don't know that.
To clarify. Yeah.
And as soon as I finish, get rid of that your donor list you send me, I shred it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there more questions? Anybody else? Because then I just want to thank Bethany if there's no one else, and then we can always chat for whoever wants to stay longer. Anyone have any questions or comments or